All right. Well, again, good morning. I'm Jerry Cornfield. I know I'm going to be, some of you guys have questions, and I'd love to hear them. I'll do the best I can to answer. Just a quick recap, though, for those who want to know what I do. I'm in Olympia. I cover the state legislature when they're in session. This election season, I've jumped all over. I don't know if you check at home, your families may have a voter's pamphlet, and as you leaf through, I've written on the presidential election because Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were both in Everett at one point. And I just wrote a story that appeared today on the governor's race, and I have the school superintendent race to cover, and a couple other matters before November 8th. So, we can chat about any of those. I'd also be interested if anyone wants to volunteer at some point. I'm always interested in knowing where people hear about elections. And since this is a historic race for president, if you've on your iPhone, on your computer, on television, in a newspaper, if there's anything you've heard in the last week about the presidential race that just like you can remember, I would be interested, anyone who wants to volunteer, because when we write stories, one of the questions we're always trying to get from the candidates and trying to figure out is what they're telling voters and what voters remember from them. And so if you watch debates that go 90 minutes, you can't remember 90 minutes worth of a debate, but you may remember one quote, one comment, one exchange. So anyway, I'm interested in knowing if any of you guys have had anything stand out from what you've heard in the race for governor, for president, or some other contest. So feel free at any point to share that. Otherwise, if you've got questions, let's start with those, and then we'll see where we go. Does anybody, I don't know if you have a microphone there you want to hand around?
Go ahead, see if he can hear you.
Blue's going first.
Okay, who's going first? Just come up here, Blue. I thought you were. Okay, our first question's coming up. Can you hear the microphone from here?
I hear you just fine.
Okay.
And
Hello?
hello.
Hi.
That's good, Quincy. Okay, here you go. Here's the hot seat.
My name is William Blue Brush, and did you attend or watch the three governor debates? What are some of your impressions?
Okay, so I watched two of the three completely. I did not attend any in person. Two of the televised debates were right after the presidential debate, so I had to work on stories related to that. So, but I was able to watch them. My impressions are that both candidates, the incumbent governor and the Republican challenger, were pretty much on the same message both times. They didn't change what they wanted to say. So the incumbent governor, Jay Inslee, is pretty confident about what he's done for 4 years. And he continued on that theme of being confident, optimistic, and talked about all the things that have happened that you might say are the good things. And Mr. Bryant, the Republican challenger, time and again was talking about what he felt were the dark clouds and the not so good things, which, it's his tactic. He knows he has to convince voters that the guy who has the job now should not keep the job. And both candidates, if you think about it, it's like a job interview, and one has the job and the other one wants it. So you've got to try to convince voters, take that person out. I didn't find it was quite as entertaining as the presidential, but then nothing's probably going to be as entertaining as Mr. Trump and Ms. Clinton this year. But we saw, and the other problem I would say is not what they said, but I think in future years, those debates probably should not come right after the presidential debate, because many people, I think, were not watching. I think they were tired after the president and turned the channel. So those are some of my impressions.
Thank you for answering my question.
Hello, my name is John Flanders. I'm going to ask you, if Bill Bryant is elected, how do you think he will make Republicans and Democrats work together?
Well, Bill Bryant's history, but we need to kind of just a little bit of history here. Bill Bryant is running as a Republican for governor, but before he was on the Seattle Port Commission. And the Seattle Port Commission, while the individuals may be Democrats and Republicans, when they run, they don't run as a Democrat or Republican. It's considered a nonpartisan seat. So you'll see their name on the ballot, but you won't see a party. And that makes people work together. When they don't have to worry about if they're Republican or Democrat, they can just by nature work together a little bit better. So I think that gives him a good starting point if he's elected, and he does have that experience. When I wrote a story about him early in the year, I went back to when he was elected the first time by the Seattle Port Commission, and the people who gave him money, a number of people gave him money, were Democrats. And some of them are now working for Governor Jay Inslee. So 10 years ago, they all had confidence in him to do the job as in both parties. And he himself has given Jay Inslee money when he was a port commissioner. So he too saw the value of participating. So I think that's a starting point when you come from that background. He's also worked on both sides of Washington. And when you've gone to Eastern Washington and you know the businesses there, that will help you get along with those lawmakers and in ways that you might not if you were born and raised in King County or Snohomish County, Mason County. So I think those are two elements that will help him if he's governor.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emmett Bruce Gornia, and I'm going to talk about the governor. Why would I vote for Jay Inslee instead of Bill Bryant?
You want me to make the case for you to vote for Jay Inslee instead of Bill Bryant. Well, Jay Inslee is the incumbent, and in 4 years, voters are going to do a couple of things, and every voter is just a little bit different, but usually they sit at home, and if they're not very engaged in Democrat or Republican politics, they're looking and thinking, is my life better or not better? Is it the same or worse? And they'll go through their daily ritual. They'll think about when they drive to work and when they get to work and the money they make at work and their schools. And on balance, you would vote for Jay Inslee if you feel that the things that are important to you day to day are the same or better. You wouldn't want to make a change. And so and that's the argument he makes in his commercials and when he's talking to people. He's saying, hey, there's more money in schools. If you go to college, at least the last 2 years, your tuition went down. And if you were in healthcare, you might not have had it before he took office. So the argument to vote for Jay Inslee is that you like the way things are going in the state. You trust that he's going to be okay to continue to lead the state versus his challenger.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason Jackson, and my question is, what has our governor done, and what has impacted us the most?
So you wonder what has governor done and what has impacted you the most?
Yes.
So in Washington, the way it's set up, and much like Congress and the president, the governor by himself or herself can't do anything, can't do much alone. They have to work with the legislature. So when I say what is the governor has done, I'm really saying this is what the governor and the legislature has done together. Over the last 4 years, they have put more money into schools. Some of that money has gone to provide all day, make it possible for young kids to go to kindergarten all day, as opposed to half a day. You won't see it, but the people who are running your school that you go to have a little more money coming in to pay for materials and supplies and the buses. In the past, the district would pay for fuel for buses, and now the state is doing a better job of paying for it. The teachers, after several years, your teachers did not receive any kind of cost of living increase, so they're now getting a cost of living increase. The total dollars for each of you students in that class has gone up that the state is spending on you, and that's been happening on his watch. So if you were in education and you're a student, you would think that's a good thing, and that would be why you might want to support the current governor over his challenger. If you were working, if your parents might say, hey, there's more jobs, or their pay has gone up, but they also might say there's more cars on the road, so congestion's got bad, and that might be a deterrent to not have them do. But I think for students between your age, going high school and into college, education is probably the #1 area. I'm not sure how much the climate issues and environment issues are being discussed in Belfair or even around the state for middle school, but that's another issue that as you get a little into the high school and college becomes a matter. The environmental issues become more important. He's pretty active on those, and that might be another reason to support him.
Okay, thanks.
Did we all cover the governor question? So next up then would be Kaylee for the Senate race.
I'm Kaylee Richardson. I'm going for the U.S. Senate. And what is Chris Vance's plan to help grow Washington's economy?
So what is Chris Vance's?
Plan to grow Washington's economy.
Oh, okay, to the economy. So he's not been as clear on the economy. In fact, most folks haven't been all that specific, whether it's Senate, governor, state, on the economy. And the reason is the economy is growing. And when things are going well, as they are, political leaders tend to say, let's not get our fingers in the pie. Let's not mess things up. But as a Republican, I think what he's going to do is he's going to support more trade with foreign countries that will help get more products like Washington apples into places like China and Asia and Europe, even more than already go there now. So I think that'll be one of his areas. Another area he'll try, but in Congress it's pretty hard, is he'll try to figure out how the amount of money that goes into Social Security and Medicare will be enough to make sure those programs continue for years and years. And he might cut some funds, or he might support cuts in some funding to make sure Social Security is secure. Those are two of the areas. He hasn't talked much about reforming how we pay taxes. As you know, in Washington, we don't pay an income tax on our job, but they do in other states. So he might be supportive of reforming the income tax so other states, don't pay as much. So those are three areas, but his main thing will be not to mess it up. In fact, nobody wants to mess it up, so they're all going to say about the same thing on that.
I'm Morgan, and my question is going to be about Initiative 1433. And it says, what will the increased revenue from Initiative 1433 go towards, and how much will it help us?
Okay, so the increased revenue from, is this 732?
Initiative 1433.
Oh, 1433. Okay, because that's the minimum wage. If the minimum wage goes up, you're assuming that there'll be more revenues, more people will spend money, and it'll increase revenue. And it's not clear how people will spend the money who get the raise. Now, I have to say, if you read in the voters pamphlet, which I read on the Initiative 1433, I did not know, but it does not apply to anyone under the age of 18. So the minimum wage will be up to the bosses of the business or the state to decide. If you were 16, 17 and you're working, you might not get a raise in January, whereas if you're over 18, you will. But if you get a raise and you spend the money at the store and you pay sales tax, that money goes into the budget. And it can be spent anywhere, but I think if there's a bunch of extra money, it's going to go into schools. There's still this lawsuit known as McCleary, where the state, you get, again, the money, it's hard to see where it's coming from, but the state needs to put more of its dollars into your education. And I think that's where that's the first place where the revenue will go. The second place is in helping those with mental illness. We have a lot of mental health services in the state, but it's still not enough. And the state hospital needs to have more improvements made to it to provide for those who really need 24-hour care. And there's also money that's going to have to go in to help those who are homeless and those who are addicted to opioids and heroin, which is really becoming a problem in the urban areas. So those are the four areas that extra revenue will go.
Initiative 735.
Hi, my name is Amber, and my question is on the Initiative 735 about campaign funding. How do you believe Initiative 735 will impact the economy?
Well, the 735 is an unusual one in that it doesn't do anything. If it passes, sadly for the folks who are behind it, it doesn't actually change anything right away. But what it does do is it says the state of Washington, if it passes, wants Congress to change the U.S. Constitution and to take money and change how money is put into the political campaign system. So immediately it would do nothing. In the long term, it might, if it changed the law, it might take organizations, whether they're big unions or big companies that now write checks and they go to these political committees for television ads, and you don't know, the money goes in a circle and it gets, no one knows where it comes from or where it ends up, but it just gets spent in the system. It may be able to clear all that up, and it may be, the goal is to not have any money secretly showing up in campaigns. So immediately nothing, long term, because multiple states have to pass the same kind of constitutional amendment, and so that it's going to take a while to get there. But ultimately, it might get less secret spending of money for and against candidates.
Okay, thank you.
Harry, you want to go ask your question? We just have some general questions now.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
And you said you wanted some about the presidential election?
Well, if somebody had any impressions, I know I was asked if I'd watched the governor's debates, if anyone there had any impressions. It's on all the news channels. It's also maybe watch Saturday Night Live or any of those shows. You might have some impressions. I'd just be interested in hearing what people's thoughts are.
All right. My name is Harry Robinson. My question is, why is it considered racist to have a picture ID to vote?
To have, it's racist is a strong word. I think that some consider it racist. Some consider it just a deterrent to people voting. It's hard to explain it because we don't have the situation when you vote by mail in Washington. Everybody can sit around the table and the family and mark their ballot and put it in at the same time, and we'll never see their faces. People tend to feel like if they have to go and prove that they are who they are, that someone's going to get information about them and their background that they shouldn't have. There's not a lot of undocumented immigrants and illegal folks in this country trying to vote. But if you have to make someone go get an identification card, it costs money. Get a driver's license or get an identification card. The state gets that information. They may never need it, but if they feel they have to go do it, then they're going to feel that it's one less reason to vote. And the racist part is because it tends to target those who are poor. That they may be in states where it's a predominance of African American or Latino, and those are the communities where it's being pushed, and that's why they feel it's racist. It's not being pushed in communities where it's dominant by whites, and so that's where the racism card is discussed.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Trey Sherpick, and I was wondering, how does the media have an effect on the elections?
So how does the
Media have an effect on
the media? I thought you were going to ask me personally. I guess if you guys watch, are you guys watching it on television? You're watching it on your iPhone? You're watching it the computer? Those are all different types of media. Facebook, that's all media today. And so one of the ways it affects the conversation, I don't know if it's going to impact the outcome, but even Twitter, that's social media, Snapchat. Donald Trump is running for president, and he uses all of those mediums, and then we cover it, and we write stories about what he put on Twitter, and it starts to spiral and go viral, and it gets people talking, and that can affect it if one theme at the beginning, I was saying, if you remember one thing from the debates, I mean, if the viewers see one thing or hear one thing and it gets repeated over and over and over, it can become part of the theme of an election, and it can affect people's opinions. I mean, more people probably know about the presidential race and WikiLeaks and Hillary Clinton and women and Donald Trump than they know anything about their education policies, because that's what the media is covering. So in that regard, if we focus on something, one issue, that can have an impact on how voters feel about the election. Now, do you guys think the media is making people, is changing people's minds, or maybe it's biased or not biased? I don't know. Anyone think it's unfair? I'm saying that they were trying to hound the reporter out and saying that they were biased. And so that's happening more and more this year.
Does anybody have a comment that they had seen media be?
I actually.
Yes.
I think it was after the second debate, most major news outlets were reporting that Donald Trump had won based on their polls, except for CNN, who gave Hillary Clinton 20 points ahead of Donald Trump, I believe, in their poll. So I just thought it was interesting that every major news outlet was reporting a Donald Trump victory in that debate, except for CNN.
And I would, it's interesting that you are paying that much attention, because they do differ, and I'm not even sure they use the same approach or same analysis to get to that conclusion. So one has to wonder if CNN was calling and talking to folks who were mostly Democrat to get that kind of a margin, and then you have the whole debate about who wins. Is it based on what they say or how they look or what their performance? But I mean, Donald Trump did a better job. And parts of each debate, he did a better job. It's just, but we'll see. He's not leading nationally right now, so those debates didn't push his campaign as far as he was hoping at this point.
Hi, my name's Jasmine.
Hey.
I have a question about Initiative 1491. So this initiative associates mental illness with violence, and how do you think people with mental illnesses feel about that?
Well, this is a tough one. Our newspaper just became, I think, the first one in the state to oppose the measure. And one of the reasons that our editorial board argued that you don't need to support this measure and to vote against the measure was that it would stigmatize those with mental illness, and they might actually, if you're battling a mental illness and you're aware that you have guns in the home, and you won't come forward to get care because you're afraid someone will come to your house and take the guns away. So, but I don't know. This is a tough one. Putting together if people are in need of services and there are guns in a home, there is a potential for danger, right, and injury. But those I know who have had mental illness and where there are guns in the home, they just needed care. They just needed services. So I don't know if this measure will help or hurt in getting more people care, but we won't know until we see how it works. And that doesn't really answer your question, though. We'll try again. What did you?
My question was, how do you think people with mental illness will feel about them associated?
Yeah, I mean, there were some organizations that came to our office and they didn't like it. The representatives of a couple of organizations, and they were worried, as I said, that those with mental illness felt like they're being singled out by this, and they might not be cared. So organizations like the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, they didn't take a position. But those who care for the mentally ill feel like, and those who are parents of children with mental illness, or maybe their children and their parents have mental illness, they're worried about their family members, and that's where this really comes from. So those with mental illness, I think, are going to feel like they may be getting targeted by this.
Thank you. Did anybody else have a question that they wanted to ask?
I have one.
Okay, let's run it by me again. Well, Quincy has a question. You go ask your question.
So you write it down. Yep. Make sure you introduce yourself.
I'm Quincy Way, and my question is, what is your favorite part about your job?
Favorite part?
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing this for a while, and I've been able to meet a lot of interesting and folks and celebrities. But I think probably what tends to be in a political season the most enjoyable part is to go to the big campaign events and to see who shows up and to see how people react. I mean, when I went to the Donald Trump event in Everett, there were almost 10,000 people, and it was like a concert. They had it in the place where the Silvertips hockey team plays, so it was in the arena. When Hillary Clinton came this year, there was only 200 people. It was in a small hall, and it was a little bit different. But I've seen multiple presidents at large events, and it's interesting to just see people participate at those events. Now, I started off as a cop reporter, so if you're a police reporter, it's the other. You get to stay out. You go out at night and you see some crazy things. But I think right now, just seeing people engaged in the political process by going to rallies, no matter who's running, it's just fun to see that, see the energy.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bradley, did you want to ask a question? Bradley wants to ask a prediction question.
Prediction question. Don't hold me to it though, right? Because I'll be wrong, and then you guys all call me back. Which one do you want me to predict on?
So, who do you think will win the presidential election, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think that's pretty easy. Hillary Clinton's going to win the state of Washington, hands down. And at this stage, unless something tremendously surprising happens with Hillary Clinton, I mean, her health, or something comes out from WikiLeaks that says she did something, so clearly criminal that even the independent voters in the country say no, she's going to be the next president. She'll be the first woman president. The resume is there, but she's just Mr. Trump is not a polished political candidate, and we've seen at times that not having that polish can make a difference. And it's really upset people. I'm surprised that because he won't accept the results of the election, that is sort of, or at least says he will, but he might not, in suspense. I think that's really upset people more than I thought it would. It felt like it was just a statement he made, but a lot of people are upset. But the short answer is Hillary Clinton will be the next president of the United States. And then you can tell me when I'm wrong. I'll be ready.
Thank you.
Did anybody else have a question?
I thought you were going to ask me a prediction for like when the Mariners will be in the World Series or something. And that would be a little harder.
Okay, you can go. Jasmine has another question.
So, what would the consequences be if people made false claims against someone?
For the women who made the false claims?
No, for people in general. Oh, no, I mean for my initiative. So for Initiative 1491, they have to make claims against someone to get the report.
Oh.
What would the consequences be if people who made false claims against someone for it?
I don't know if I can answer. I don't know that I know the answers specifically because I'm not familiar. What I know about the order is it's sort of two pieces. An emergency, they could take guns away and get care for a certain number of days. But if you want to do a long term, you have to go to court. And those who are said to be a risk to themselves, those who may have a mental illness, will get a chance in court. And so they shouldn't pay any consequences, but they will get a chance to make the case that they're okay. But I don't think I don't know if there are consequences per se the way you've asked the question. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if someone made a claim against someone to get the guns taken away and it wasn't true, they lied about it, what would be the consequence?
Okay. So the people who can go to court really have to be a family member, and they have to go, and they're going to have law enforcement there too. So there would be for a false. I'd have to look up specifically, but if they made false claims and it could be proven that they made false claims, there may be a misdemeanor, or they could be fined. But I can't just go in and say something about you if this becomes law. It would have to be a family member that would go to court, and they would have to have law enforcement on their side to ask a judge to take that extreme. It's an extreme step. They're saying it's an extreme risk. That's also an extreme step to take away someone's guns.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to say, well, before you started, 1491 is interesting because I think we'll be one of the first states in the country to pass it by voting. Legislators in other states have passed similar measures, but this will be the first time voters are getting a chance, and we'll be sort of test driving it. Okay, your question?
Hi, my name is Scarlett Solis, and I was wondering when it comes to in the baseball World Series, who do you think will win, the Indians or the Cubs?
That's a better political question. Okay, this is a problem because I'm going to root for the Cubs just because they haven't been there for so long. But after last night's game, I'm a little worried that the Cleveland Indians are going to win. Not being a Cleveland Cavalier fan, I don't want Cleveland to get all the championships. So I'm going to try to root for the Cubs, root for history. And it's going to be a historic year, right? So we'll just root for that. A Cubs fan.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
If someone else has a question? Do we want John to go first and ask the next question?
And we'll have one more question in the end.
So Cassie, John.
Okay. Oh,
Stay up there, Cassie.
is this our last question, you said?
We have two more.
Two more, okay.
If elected, do you think Bill Bryant will be able to accomplish everything in his 6-part plan?
But he has a lot of plans, right? He's got a 4-part education and 6-part and 11-part. No. And I say that because history shows that most lawmakers come in with these big plans, governors, senators, and they just can't do them all. But they put them all on the table. They may get, you might get 2 or 3. Maybe by the 4th year, they might be able to get through all of them, but it really is, it's tough to get everything. You ask for more than you can get in the legislative process, and so I would say no.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassie, and I just wanted to say thank you for giving us your time and answering our questions.
I'm sorry, do it.
I just wanted to say thank you for giving us your time and answering our questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for. I would appreciate it, and I enjoy giving my time for this. Okay.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, thank you very much for meeting with our classes. We're happy our connection was better this time.
Oh yeah.
We really appreciate everything.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for having us in there.
Hey, everybody say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.